说到 Alexander 23，可能吉他界很多朋友没听过他的名字，但他是跟 John Mayer 共同演出过的男人啊。John Mayer 的 Soft Rock 巡回中 ，Alexander 23担当他的开场嘉宾，而且 John Mayer 更在 Alexander 23演出的时候，上台一起共演Tears for Fears 的经典歌曲 Everybody Wants to Rule the World。Alexander 23之所以用了23这个数字，是因为他说，他是23号出生，又在芝加哥长大，于是从小看着背号23号的 Michael Jordan 打球。好，那他也在23岁的时候开始写歌，因此觉得对这个数字有一个很深的连结。在取艺名的时候，想要结合他本名，于是就选择了使用 Alexander 23这个艺名。身为创作型歌手的他，其实还身兼制作人的身份，有帮不同的艺人制作专辑，而且他制作的专辑更有获得葛莱美奖的提名。除了他会弹吉他之外，他自己也会弹很多不同的乐器。我们在访问的时候说到会问器材相关的问题，他竟然非常开心的说，终于有人问他这些问题了。那我们现在就来更多了解一下 Alexander 23这个人吧。
We are Wire Soul Life, and in Chinese that's like literally musician's nest. Yeah, so a lot of us are musicians. I play the guitar. And,
yeah.
Max also plays the guitar, and
nice.
Other editorials, they might not play instruments themselves, but
no, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
trust me, it's appreciated. It changes the question base usually.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll ask you stuff on your gear.
I mean, this is great. This is a dream for me. I wish everyone asked me about my gear.
Yeah, so again, we're gear nerds at Wire Soul Life ourselves, right? And then we see that you use the Gibson SG a lot, right? So we'd like to ask you about the guitars you use, and obviously, amps and all the other stuff, because you also produce.
Yeah.
If you can elaborate on that.
Oh yeah, I mean, for sure. Do it all day. We're gonna do a while to talk about this. So I started working with Gibson a couple years ago now, and they've just been really good to me. And I was kind of looking in the pop space for a tone that I felt like was being underrepresented, because I grew up playing a Strat, of course, as a lot of people do, especially playing the type of music I was. But I wasn't seeing a lot of Gibsons, especially SGs, kind of in the pop world and in the indie world, And I'm just like, this guitar rocks, there must be a space for this tone. And so I started putting it on my own music, and then it just kind of started sounding good, and people were liking it. And so then I started putting in the music I was producing as well,
right.
Which was fun. But I love that. I play for amps. I play Supros. They've been really kind to me, and I love Supros because I think they're great for when I tour. I play all different kinds of rooms depending on where it is, and
right.
how popular I am in that city. So I was looking for an amp that I could kind of use for everything, and I think it breaks up at low volumes in a way that is really appealing in a small room, but if you
right.
crank it in a big room, it sounds amazing. So I've played it in stadiums, and I've played it in small little clubs, and I'm happy with the tone every time, and then that combined with I have a pedal board that my friend, shout out Cute Rigs, made me. He's the best pedal board builder in LA. He's the man. And it gets it done for everything. And I use the pedals a lot in the studio as well for production.
Right.
That's a big part of my process is I'll just I'll loop the track, and then I'll just mess around with the timeline and the big sky, and kind of get some cool little feedback loops and stuff like that.
Strumming stuff.
I mean, the strumming stuff's the best. Although they gotta figure out the screws on the knot. They always come loose, and then the pedal falls back into the box. Other than that, they're perfect pedals, obviously.
Right.
But I mean, that might be a problem that's unique to when you're touring a lot, because it starts jangling around a bit.
Yeah, obviously, in the rock world, the SG is often used, the AC/DC or Black Sabbath. But in the pop world, it's not as common.
I wasn't seeing it, and I was like, this is wrong. Someone's got to do something about this. But then, I use the 335 a lot too. I think if I could only have one guitar, I would choose the 335.
Right.
Because I think it does so many things well, and it's just got such a beautiful sound to it.
And then we see that you use an orange Dan Electro.
Yeah, I have a little Dan Electro baritone.
Oh, okay, yeah, that is indeed his baritone. Yeah, because I was going to ask about that.
Which is great. I mean, it's obviously not for everything. But when you find the right song, I produced a song for my friend Grace Anger called The Cut, and it's it's the star of that production, and it just is so deep and warm and beautiful. And yeah, I love baritone guitars.
Right. So you mentioned that you picked the SG mainly because you're not seeing it as much in the pop world, but what kind of guitars do you gravitate towards? Preferences?
Yeah. I mean, growing up, I was playing Strats. Only Strats, because I was doing a lot of John Mayer type stuff, and I wanted to play, blues stuff like that. And so And for that kind of stuff, even if today, if I'm doing, I mean, John sent me one of his Silver Sky.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which is like, I mean, like, you want to be like a truist, you want to be like, no, you know, Fender, Stratocaster over everything. And then you like play one of those and you're like, this thing is a weapon. Like this thing, you can just fly around the fretboard, but the tone is so nice. And so when I'm doing like Strat type stuff in the studio, I'm usually grabbing that now, for sure. And then what else do I use? For acoustic, I'm playing it on this tour. I play a Hummingbird Deluxe, which I absolutely love. Aside from sounding good, it looks good, which is equally important, of course, as you know, as a guitar player. So I love that. And then, acoustic-wise, I also have a Martin OMC-E Claro, I believe is the mono that I love. It's a smaller body. The Gibson is so big; it's so good for like more like big, warm-sounding stuff. Yes. But when we want to get a little bit more in the weeds, and I like having a smaller Martin. I think they do those great.
Right, and then so, for your album cover and also the Aftershock like promo images, like you have a melting SG, silver SG, right?
Yeah.
So how was that crafted?
It was crafted by I'm lucky enough to live in Los Angeles, where some of the best prop makers in the world live for Hollywood. So we had someone kind of go in and really, it's a practical, like it's a real thing. I have it hanging in my house. Like we were like, if we're gonna do this, we got to do it. I don't want to Photoshop this. Like I want it to really exist. So, yeah, it was kind of a long process, but the guy did an amazing job, and I'm lucky that he did, because I love the album cover so much. I mean, like being such a guitar nerd my whole life, for my debut album to like have the centerpiece of a guitar, it was really important.
Yes. Yeah, and we also like to know, how's your usual songwriting process? Because I know a lot of people, they would say, they start with a melody in their head, right? And then they maybe lay down the melody and then have accompaniments alongside with it. So, how is your usual process go?
For me, it changes a little bit every time, of course, but it's usually pretty lyric based at the start. Like I usually need to know kind of where I'm pointing my arrow, before I get going. Like, so it'll start with a lyric for the most part, and sometimes that's the first line of the song, sometimes that's like the chorus lyric, but just something to kind of like get me going. Like I say it all the time, but I think songwriting is really about like momentum. That's the name of the game. It's like, how can I just keep feeling like I'm advancing? Even if you're not, you just need to feel like you're advancing. So I kind of try not like box myself in, and I kind of try and just do whatever feels, it sounds like taking a shortcut, but I think it's not. Like I try and do like whatever feels the easiest in the moment. So if that's like starting with a melody, because I feel like, okay, that's where I'm starting, If that's starting with a lyric, which it usually is, that's where I'm starting. If it feels better on guitar, I'll write it on guitar. If it feels better on piano, I'll write it on piano. If I get, halfway in and I think, I think I should start the production, I have a drum idea, I'll do the drum idea, So I think it's just taking whatever path feels like the most natural in that moment.
So it's also kind of spontaneous.
For sure, yeah. Because I think at least for me, if I don't do it that way, then I just get so stuck and so frustrated, And like writing a great song is so hard. Like why make it harder? I'd rather make it easier if I can.
Right. So that also shows that it really comes from your heart, because being spontaneous, right? You're not doing it like following a formula.
Totally, yeah. I mean, and I think it has to, come from, at least for me in the music that I'm trying to make, like it has to be that way. And I am in a little bit of a unique, and getting less unique, honestly, there's more people doing this position, but I'm writing, I'm tracking all the instruments, I'm singing it, and I'm producing it by myself usually. So it's a lot of different hats to wear. So the way I try and balance that is to just make it as easy on myself as possible.
Yeah, so, because as you mentioned, you also produce, right? And then produce for yourself, and also you produce for a lot of other people, right? Would any one of them stuck out to you the most?
Oh man, trying to get me in trouble. I mean, they're all so good. I like, before I even like pick someone, but I just like, when I make music for myself, I often like put so much pressure on myself, and it's so hard to like holistically say like, this is what I want to sound like, and when you're writing it and producing it yourself, like you have to make that decision over and over again. So I love producing for other artists, because they get to kind of be the captain and I get to be the co-captain. And it's really refreshing to be like, like sometimes I'll be in a session and they'll be like, well, what do you think? And I'll be like, well, I'll tell you what I think, but it doesn't matter. Like you're the one that's going to have to sing this song in Taipei on tour. Like it's not going to be me this time. So like you have to love it. And it's really nice for me to also be in that position, rather than always just being like, I have to love it, I have to love it, I have to love it.
Right.
Which is nice. But I'll shout out my friend Grace Anger. She just put out her debut EP, and it's amazing. I was lucky enough to get to make some music amicably.
Sweet. And did you learn anything from like working with other people?
Yeah, I learn stuff all the time. Yeah, like all the time. Like, so, and you know what's funny is like, sometimes it's like a skill or like something technical, but more often than not, it's just like an approach. It's like a way of like thinking about stuff, or like, you know, like working with Grace, for example, she's just like, there's like a fearlessness in the way she writes. You know, there's like, it's almost like she doesn't like doubt herself in the way that I can sometimes. Or I just did Renee Rapp's album, you know, and like just the way that like nothing is like off limits for her. Like she's willing to go there, like both emotionally and sonically in any direction at any time. And that's the kind of stuff that I take back to when I'm making my own music. It's like, okay, like I think about them, and I think about like how they approach stuff, and how I can, you know, kind of work that into my own process.
I think this way, you know, not only you're a musician yourself, and you also produce, and it kind of, I would say you're in a really good position because you can absorb from so many different places and
For sure.
Take inspiration from many different, from people as well,
Yeah.
you know, the artists that you also work with.
No, for sure. I feel very, very fortunate to have that, you know, opportunity and that experience, you know,
Yeah.
because there's so, as good as you get is like, I feel like as much better as you can be, you know, like the more experiences I have, the more people I meet, the more I like learn, you know, about not only them, but myself. So I agree.
And how did you first got into producing?
So I got in producing, it was really because I like was tired of waiting for producers. You know, I was like, well, I play all the instruments, you know, I like doing this stuff. I'm pretty good with the computers. Like, I bet I could learn how to do this, you know? And so I was kind of like, I was playing in a band at the time, and we were always waiting for demos from producers and waiting for demos, like hitting them, texting them like, hey, can you send this demo? And you know, they would take forever, you know? And I was like, well, I'll just do it, you know? So I just started kind of learning myself and asking producer friends like for advice and stuff like that, and watching YouTube videos and all that stuff. And, you know, it obviously snowballed to the point where now, you know, I get to do it for a living, which is really nice.
Yeah, so you're kind of self-taught, you know, from learning from the internet.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
I think you can learn, I mean, like, it is self-taught, but I feel like the definition of self-taught is changing so much, because like, these are like legitimate people and producers teaching. You know, it's not just like I'm messing around. Like, I'm like, I mean, obviously a fair amount of messing around in trial and error, but like on the more technical side, like you're getting the best people in the world that are teaching you every day, which is really cool.
For example, you're having a course.
Yeah, yes,
yourself.
There we go. Yeah, well, that was really fun too. And the way we did that course was really important to me. And I think we did it a cool way, which I haven't seen that much of. And, but this company studio who I worked with to do the course, I think they're like at the forefront of really, really teaching like the creative arts, because there's so many things that creatively are like, how do you teach someone how to write a song? Like, it's like, there's so much magic involved. Like, and the way they do it was like, they were like, we just want you to write the song and produce the song. And then we'll like go back and think of like what lessons are where, rather than being like, okay, I'm gonna do this, 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 and this. It was like, do your thing, and then we'll kind of go back and analyze like what was the process and stuff, which is really nice. I think it's a better way of approaching it.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, you know, the definition of self-taught is kind of changing, because
Yeah.
maybe way back, you know, self-taught is when you have to figure out everything by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now like you can actually learn from, you know, professionals on the internet.
Yeah, totally. No, it's totally different now than it was.
Yeah, so you know, again, you know, having a course, you put out a course, so you know, that could also help other people.
Yeah, and I think there's just like a perspective shift of like, at first people were trying to like figure out, how do I teach you how to do this? Which I think is the wrong approach for stuff that's more creative and less just like exact. And like my course, and I think a lot of courses now are like, well, how do we teach you how to think? You know, because then you can apply that to whatever you want, you know, but it's just more of like a thought process.
And you know, on the producer's perspective, if it could be anyone, you know, who would you like to work with?
Oh, great question. I should probably have a better answer for this. For a second, I'm going to take this seriously. It would be fun to do. I actually heard some of her producers, and they're incredible. So Casey Musgraves, it would be fun to do some work with her. I'm a big fan.
Right. And you know, on the musician's perspective, you know, if you could work with anyone, you know, who would that be?
Ooh, this is fun too.
Song collabs.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to do a song with Casey too. That'd be fun. I want to start having more guitar players playing some of my stuff that I look up to, and we've actually tried a couple things together. We haven't nailed it yet, but my friend Corey Wong,
okay,
one of my favorite guitar players. It would be
phenomenal
very fun
player
to have him play on. I had him play on some stuff that unfortunately didn't come out, but he's just so good, and he's got such a cool, unique style. And so it'd be fun to have him play on either something that for me or that I'm producing for someone else.
Yeah, that's something that, you know, a lot of us at Wise Life would look forward to as well.
Yeah.
Because like we're always like looking at his hand and like, how does he do it?
Yeah, I mean, he just is built for it. Like, it's just a different thing. And like, to see him in the studio, it's one of those things where like, yeah, you're really you. You know, like, like sometimes you like see something, you're like, there's no way that, and then you see him in the studio, you're like, oh no, you're really doing this. And he's like the nicest guy ever, which helps a lot as well.
Yeah. And then, you know, speaking of guitar players, you know, we know that you're a fan of John Mayer, and you know, also mentioned that in the beginning of this interview. So, you know, how was it that you got to work with him?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not even fully sure, but he, you know, I think heard my songs and liked them enough to take me on tour, which is crazy because he's like he's the one. He's like I mean, as far as like being someone who, you know, I feel like a songwriter first and foremost as an artist, but also like the guitar is such an intricate part of my process and of my songs and my music making in general. And so he's, you know, he's the guy that like, I feel like he almost like pioneered that for a whole generation. So to get to go on tour with him is great. And it's even better, he's become a friend. Like if I have a question, I can just text him, which is like,
nice.
I still can't believe it, you know? Like, hey man, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And he'll just hit me back. You know?
Nice.
It's definitely a good resource.
Yeah, and he even gave you one of his guitars.
Yeah, and it rips, so.
And then, you know, what would you consider to be your career highlight? You know, Grammy nomination, or, you know, working with John Mayer.
Oh man.
Having him on, you know, play the guitar with you on stage.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely one of them. We got to do, you know, my favorite Tears for Fears song together,
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Which was insane. And like Tears for Fears reached out and they saw it and they liked it, which was also cool.
Oh yeah, I think I saw it on the YouTube comment. I think they commented.
Yeah, and like we like spoke privately a little bit, and they were just so cool. I mean, like I'm a huge Tears for Fears fan.
Sweet.
Especially just like as far as like producing pop music too. Their just productions are unbelievable as well. Career highlight. I'll choose one. Last year I went back and I'm from Chicago, and I went back and played some sets at Lollapalooza, which was really fun for me, and like my whole family and my friends from growing up got to come, which was really nice.
Okay, so you know, Aftershock, you know, going back to the album, Aftershock is an album that you wrote based on your, you know, heartbroken stories, right? And then I also read in the previous interview that, you know, for the next album you're moving on, so you know, what could I expect from you in the future? Yeah,
I mean, I wish I knew, but I'm working on it now. I think a lot of it is like in this period of kind of like finding yourself again and redefining yourself and figuring out, you know, who you want to be, both like internally and externally. So I think it's just, for the most part, so far, it's about like a bunch of new experiences. You know, Aftershock was like this intense, like looking back and analyzing, you know, what went wrong, what could I have done, how do I feel now, what do I want in the future? And now I'm in this period of like, okay, like I'm trying on different things, I'm seeing what feels good, and I'm just kind of willing to kind of put it all out there and write about it.
And then I believe this is your first time playing in Taiwan, right?
Yeah.
And then also other Asian cities?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, what are you looking forward the most to?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think, at least online, like I've had this perception, and so far it's been proven true, that kind of the people in this part of the world are just like unbelievable fans and so generous with their like time and attention. And so I've been wanting to for so long to actually like get in person and play, because I started out playing live. Like I didn't like I wasn't producing growing up. I like learned that, you know, along the way, but I was just playing shows. So for me, like the shows will always be like the #1 way to really actually connect with people. So it's nice after kind of years to like finally be able to connect in person. And then other than that, it's been really nice to try the food in all these places. Like I love all the food from this part of the world, so it's been a treat. Okay,
so we'll just end on a fun question. Please, you know, describe your love for dogs, and how did you burn all the budget within 40 seconds?
Well, it was easy to burn the budget for that video. Yeah, a couple explosions, a couple, you know, fast cars and stuff, a motorcycle, that'll run through your budget real quick. And then we had to save the video somehow. What better way to do it than with puppies, you know?
Sweet.
It was great. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so that's it for today. So thank you very much.
Nice, thank you.
Thank you.
For taking the time.